Welcome back to the Punk Uncle Show. We have another couple of product reviews for you today. We are looking at P&W Components Loam remote lever and the Rainier Generation 3 dropper post, which has 30 millimeters of adjustable travel. We're going to give you a long-term review of both components as well as a quick tutorial on the toolless travel adjustment in the post. I'll show you how easy that is to do in case you ever need to perform that little task yourself. So hit subscribe and like, stick around, let's get into this. Thanks for joining me. First of all, I want to apologize for my polka dotted appearance. We have an impromptu sprinkle storm starting here out of nowhere, so I'm getting a little bit wet, but we're going to forge ahead and see if we can't get through this review because I think it's an important one and one that'll be very useful to a lot of viewers. In the last 20 years, I would say, it would be hard to argue that there is an innovation in mountain biking equipment that is more important or has been more of a game changer than the adjustable / dropper seat post. These are a pretty big part of every build and every mountain bike sold these days. And I think, especially if you're either replacing one or building a bike from scratch, a lot of research goes into which dropper to use. This is one that I've been using for almost a year now. This is the original post that I installed when I built this Evil Following in the spring of 2021. It's now January of 2022, so I have about 11 months on this post and remote, and I've got a really good sense of what they have to offer and how they perform over a long period of time through some pretty heavy use. Before we get into my actual review, let's talk about the features and construction of both of these pieces. Now, I've got the 170 millimeter with a 30.9 seat tube diameter. P&W offers these in 30.9, 31.6, 34.9, and also 27.2 millimeter seat tube diameters. This particular model is only available with internal routing options. Some of P&W's posts they sell with an external routing option for older frames that didn't accommodate internal routing for a dropper cable. But this one is internal only, so that's something to keep in mind if that applies to your application. After measuring everything with this frame when I got it, 170 millimeters ended up being the right length for me. That got me as much insertion as I could get while maximizing the full travel of the seat post. But one thing that's really nice and important to note about this and some of P&W's other posts is that they do have adjustable travel. So depending on what model you buy, you can get 30 millimeters that comes in 5 millimeter increments of adjustability. So say I was to move this post to another frame and it was a little too tall and I couldn't get the saddle height that I needed and I needed to reduce that, I've got the option to go 30 millimeters shorter, so all the way down to 140 millimeters in 5 millimeter increments. That adjustability is really useful, like I said, if you ever have to switch frames, but also if you're not quite sure and you're trying to get as much travel as you can, but you're not 100% sure that it's going to work out. If you know that you've got that little bit of cushion of adjustability, that can make a big difference when choosing the seat post. Another nice thing that P&W does is they have a dropper post sizing chart on their website. So that's a great tool that can help you determine which post is the right size for your bike and your body so that you get the best results. And that's available right there on pnwcomponents.com. Now, in addition to the seat tube diameter options that P&W gives you for this post, there are also travel options. There's a 125 millimeter, a 150, a 170, and also 200 millimeter versions of this. So there's a lot of range there for the amount of travel. And then again, with that 30 millimeter adjustability in each one of those, gives you a lot of choices. My 170 millimeter, 30.9 diameter post comes in at 618 grams according to P&W's website. Now, that's one of the places where you're going to make a bit of a trade-off going with the Rainier Generation 3. This is a pretty nicely priced post. It's $179 for the post alone. That puts it well below almost everything else on the market. Getting something at that good of a price, you would figure it's going to come with some concessions. You're going to have a trade-off somewhere, right? The only place I can really figure that that is happening is in the weight. This post is a little bit heavier than some other stuff, you know, of similar size on the market. The P&W Loam post, for example, which is P&W's top model, is just about 100 grams lighter for the same size. If the weight's important to you, you can spend another 20 bucks or so and go with their higher end post, which gives you the same adjustability, but comes in at a little bit lower weight if that's a big deal. When I was building the bike, the Loam was sold out. The Rainier was available, so I decided to just go for it and haven't really regretted it, haven't noticed anything. So I can tell you that the weight, unless you're racing cross country or something, I mean, 100 grams is pretty negligible on a trail bike. So it's kind of a personal preference thing, but for me, when it came down to a choice of availability, I didn't worry about it, and I never have since. The dropper function itself is controlled by a sealed air cartridge. And as you can see, operation is smooth, it's not pogo-y. If you've ever seen some of those posts, I have some friends with bikes that the dropper post is almost like an ejection seat. It comes up so hard. So that's one thing we noticed when we built this bike, is how smooth the action of the post was. And I'm pretty happy to report that after 11 months, that hasn't changed at all. It's still functioning just as well as it did the first day. And this is my everyday bike. It's been ridden a lot. You might think, oh, well, this is your trail bike, you know, it's only 120 millimeters, so how much are you actually using a dropper post? You know, not as much as you would on your bike park bike or something like that. But I can tell you, in the past year, I've ridden this everything from all-day trail rides to all-day shuttle days. So this post has gotten used a lot. I've ridden it in Oak Ridge, Oregon, Ashland, all over the Sierras. So I've done a lot of riding on this bike, and I've used the post a lot more than you would think, even on a bike of this amount of travel. So definitely enough to say that I've put it through the ringer and can give a pretty educated opinion on the longevity. So since we're getting to that point, we'll just talk about it now. I kind of already mentioned it. I haven't had any issues with this. It's actually kind of shocking. I don't know that I've gone a full year with any other dropper post without having some kind of, you know, issue. It's literally been just set it and forget it. Get the right seat height, and then it just keeps working. I talk about my experience with this post without also talking about the Loam lever that P&W makes. So let's go ahead and get into that as well. This lever's CNC machined. It works with a sealed cartridge bearing, and all the hardware is stainless steel. It's built to last. It'll work any cable actuated dropper post on the market. So it doesn't have to only go with a P&W. You can use it with any of the others. And then you've got this little injection molded plastic pad on the lever that just adds some grip and comfiness to using it. One thing that P&W does with a lot of their components is matches up colors. So you can see the pad here on the lever is this gray color, and it matches my grips perfectly. If you were to buy the Loam dropper post, they come with a little band, colored band that goes around the collar here that you can also match up to those components. So if you're into matching up, you know, your colors and getting a little splash accent on your bikes here and there, that's another thing that P&W does that's cool. They have a pretty wide variety of colors that you can add and match them up or mix them up if you want, kind of however you want to play that. So just another level of customization possible. But as far as the levers function and durability itself, I have to say it's basically the same as the post. I have not had any problems at all. This thing has just worked like butter from day one, and it's never stopped. I haven't even had to adjust it really. I haven't had to adjust tension. The thing's just, it pulls the cable really nicely, really smoothly, has plenty of leverage, and that's exactly what you want. You just want consistent feel every time you go to use it, and that's what I believe you get for this lever. The retail cost of the lever is $69. The post again is $179. So you're looking at about 250 bucks total. There's a lot of posts on the market where the post alone costs more than that. So to be able to get a really reliable post and a really reliable, high quality remote for that price, to me is a slam dunk and cements this as a really solid value. I'd say that brings the review portion of this video to a close. I give my full endorsement to both of these products, and I would not hesitate to use either of them again, and probably will on bikes in the future. With that said, I do want to show you guys just how easy it is to adjust the travel if you need to do so on the post. It's toolless and really simple and quick. So let's take a look at that before we go. The first step is go ahead and drop your post about 10 millimeters. So just on the lever, push it down about 10 mils, and then you're going to loosen this collar around the post. Just unthread it until it releases. Okay, so once that's released, you can see you have these numbers on the post. So this is your stock setting of 0 millimeters, and you see these little notches here. These are the 5 millimeter increments. So you've got a 10, 20, but there's a notch in between each of those, so you have the 5 millimeter adjustment of each one. Once you're at this point where the collar has been pulled up, you go ahead and release the post again, and that brings this adjustment, the sleeve, up. So you can see we've got a little arrow here. There's our little arrow. So wherever you want this to go, you would just move that and put it down to the proper slot that you think you need. I already know that this works well where I have it, so I'm gonna put it right back down into that, yeah, right into that same 0 slot. Once you've got the proper slot, you've got it seated, you simply tighten it back down and you're done. So were I to need a little bit less travel, I would have just moved that over. And the nice thing is you can kind of experiment with it, and it's real easy to go back and forth until you get it just right. To summarize, 30 millimeters of travel adjustment that's very simple to operate, great longevity, great durability and dependability, and maybe most important, a great price. So if you're looking for a budget-friendly but super reliable dropper post, the Rainier Generation 3 could be for you. And if you want top of the line, no muss, no fuss, dependable, bulletproof, really well designed remote lever, look no further than the Loam remote from P&W. Everything that I've owned and reviewed by P&W components has been money to this point. So it's not a big surprise to me that I've had great luck with these, but I feel really good about passing my recommendation on to you viewers, and I wholeheartedly recommend either of these if you're in need. Thanks for sticking around and watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. Please remember to hit like and subscribe, and join us for the next one. See you out there. Do I look okay?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.